There was a time when Disney came out and announced a plethora of Star Wars content for Disney Plus, and I remember looking at them all and being like, I'm excited for Obi-Wan, I'm excited for Ahsoka, I'm excited for The Mandalorian. And what's this? They're making a prequel to that prequel movie? They're making a prequel series to the prequel movie that I didn't really like both times I watched it, because I thought it was kind of boring until, of course, the very end. Why would I care about Andor? I guess I'll give it a go, but, man, this is one for, like, people who aren't me, I guess. This one's not really on my radar. Little did I know that it would be my favourite and most emotionally moving Star Wars show. Maybe Star Wars media. Do I like this more than any of the movies? It definitely affected me emotionally more than any of the movies. And yes, I'm going to rewatch Rogue One after I've recorded this. Maybe it will hit different now. Probably it will. I would be surprised if it didn't, but man, I just did not care about Rogue One. I didn't care about Cassian Andor. And I don't remember if I recorded a video on it, but I watched season 1, and the first few episodes I thought were kind of slow, and the only reason I persevered was because I heard so much chatter about how good it was. I think I watched it after it was all fully available, and then after I finished season 1, I was pretty much in the same spot I'm in right now, going, oh my god, that was incredible. I think I've listened to the soundtrack fairly frequently between the end of season 1 and me watching through season 2. I know I'm a little bit late to season 2, by the way, but again, I don't know, I recently watched Something I Love as it aired week to week, and I felt less attached to it than I normally would have been binging it, so I kind of wanted to wait until it was all available so I could watch it at my own pace. Honestly, I'm not a big show rewatcher. I did rewatch Daredevil earlier this year to get ready for Daredevil Born Again, but beyond that, I really don't go back and rewatch shows that I've watched in the past. I want to rewatch Andor right now. I want to watch it from the start right now. I'm not going to, but oh my god, I wish I had rewatched season 1 before season 2 just to keep everything super fresh in my memory. But yeah, what I love... Okay, I should probably start articulating why I love the show so much. The original Star Wars trilogy was about a rebellion, but it was also about space magic and laser swords. And this show takes the rebellion aspect of Star Wars and takes a proper deep delve into a grounded story about what it means to be part of a rebellion against this monolithic and all-powerful galactic empire. It is a show for adults, because don't get me wrong, I love Star Wars Rebels, but it can't go into the kind of themes that this show goes into, because that was aimed at young adults and children, if we're being honest. So you don't get themes of morality and how far is going too far, and do you have to go too far and compromise your own morality and the notion of good and evil in order to bring about greater good to the galaxy, and how, when does greater good become an evil, a crutch for evil, and that kind of thing. I think Luthen was an endlessly fascinating character in that regard. We've got Saw Gerrera, of course, as the most radical rebel in the bunch, and the one who goes too far and is kind of a villain, really. But we've now got Luthen, who walks that line of when he kills an informant because it's absolutely vital that information gets out and that he isn't compromised before the information gets out, because if the information does not get out, then so many people are going to die. I was not expecting this show to give us a look at the Senate and Coruscant and how that all functioned during this part of the Empire. I mean, I'm just gonna say it, I wasn't expecting Mon Mothma to become one of my favourite Star Wars characters ever. She was always kind of a side character, off in the distance, doing her own thing. But in this show, she's incredible. We see how this senator, who is part of the system, tries to do good and bring about good things within this corrupt and awful government. And again, one of the resounding themes of this entire show is how trying to do the right thing has a massively negative effect on your life and those you love. And it's really interesting to see the progression of her life as a senator, trying to do good within the Senate, to, trying to secretly fund the rebellion, and then when it all becomes too much and she has to get out of there, but she's not going to do so without making this grand speech as one like last final attempt to open eyes and change minds. I love that about her. Honestly, go back in time 10 years and tell me that Mon Mothma is going to become one of my absolute favourite Star Wars characters, and I will be flummoxed. Although there is a novel that I remember quite liking her in, Bloodlines, I think by Claudia Gray? Yes, if you want to see kind of some post-original trilogy, early New Republic political stuff, there is a novel about Leia Organa called Bloodline, in which Mon Mothma serves a part. I think it'll be really interesting looking at some of that extended media through the lens of a post-Andor world and seeing how well it holds up. I think that is one of the dangers of having this world, this endless story in which we are constantly making new shows, new books, new movies in different parts of a timeline from many different people's ideas, many different authors, many different writers. Are these characters and their motivations and their pasts and the A to B of them, is that going to hold up over time? One would hope so, but it is a monumental task. Obviously, I haven't talked about the main character of the show, Cassian Andor, who's great, by the way. I love him. I don't think he was my favourite character in the show, though, but I did really enjoy watching his progression of someone who just doesn't really care about the wider events that's happening to someone who ends up becoming such a key and important rebellion figure. Of course, we know going into this the events of Rogue One. And I guess spoilers if you haven't watched Rogue One and you don't know what's going to happen, tune out for like 10 seconds, but we know that he is not making it out of this alive, which just makes it all the more tragic when we see Bix break off their relationship so that he will focus on the rebellion because he's so important for them, and says that she'll catch up with him when it's all done. That is so tragic. How did they take the end of Rogue One and make it even more tragic, you bastards? It is crazy just how much Cassian Andor goes through in this show. Like, towards the end of it, you do get those moments of like, I don't think he ever outright says it, but those looks he gives people of like, you haven't seen what I've seen, you haven't done what I've done. He even talks about trying to retire from the rebellion because the only thing that's keeping him alive at this point is luck, because of how much crazy shit he's lived through. Although that was also part of a wider, exhaustion, I think. I love how we also have some POVs from the Empire. We see Cyril's character arc as, basically someone who's part of the Empire and wants to just work his way up the ranks and is just an absolute, live and die by the code government guy. And we see how the Empire and the woman he loves ends up using him to achieve their own ends, and how he never goes on like a full redemption arc. He's trying to kill Andor when he gets shot in the head, but we definitely start to see his disillusionment, and he starts questioning everything that he's known. And I think he too is a tragic figure, because I think the whole point of him is to show just how indoctrinated the Empire makes its citizens. But he is obviously very highly flawed as well. Similarly, we see Deja Miro on kind of the flip side of this, or the other outcome of this, as someone who is also trying to make their way through the ranks and is also a die-hard Empire stan, but she just does not, no matter how badly treated by the Empire, she does not back down from believing in the mission, and we see where that lands her. She ends up in that prison from season 1, which I thought was a very good ending for her. The show is a constant tearing down of fascistic ideals on which the Empire is built, and I think sometimes Star Wars is in danger of becoming too cartoony and too whimsical about like, that dang Empire, I don't know, I'm kind of on the side of the Empire, and it's like, no, listen, the Empire is clearly a take on a certain government from the 1940s that I'm not sure I'm allowed to mention without being algorithmically nuked from orbit, and we should take them seriously, because this is a piece of media with things to say about a certain style of government, looking at a certain belief, by the way, about how people should be treated and governed and stuff. And that kind of belief and that kind of desire for that sort of government is certainly on the rise in the world at the minute. This felt like a painfully relevant story to be telling right now, especially with all the Gorman stuff. The way the Gormans are treated and the way the Empire turns public opinion against them is happening in the real world today. And I think that is part of what made this show such a gut punch and so important and so emotionally moving. But you don't need me to tell you that. I think one of my favourite things about this show is just how it broadens and deepens the Star Wars universe. The Emperor dissolving the Senate was a throwaway line in A New Hope. I'm pretty sure anyway, it's been a while since I watched it. But here, this story, that would be such a major deal. We just don't see this side of the Star Wars universe in the movies. And with shows like this existing to flesh out kind of like the more intricate parts of the universe, we get to watch those movies again and enjoy the kind of original Star Wars content with more of a broader perception of the stakes. And I think that is probably what Andor's mission statement was. That's probably what Rogue One's mission statement was as a story within this franchise, and I think it absolutely nailed it. I don't really have all much more to say, to be honest. I could probably gush about this for years, but I'm just going to be repeating myself. I could go into more detail, but I think you've got the essence of what I'm trying to convey here. The last thing I'll say, and I guess I should have led this with this because we've talked spoilers now, but I truly believe that this is a Star Wars story that does not require knowledge of or appreciation of Star Wars to be watched and enjoyed. I keep telling people, and I'm not sure they believe me, I keep telling people, I know you don't like Star Wars. I know Rise of Skywalker did things to you. It did things to all of us. You don't need to care about that. You don't need to know anything about Rogue One. You don't need to know anything about A New Hope. This is just a fantastic show in its own right. It's sci-fi, but you don't even really need to care about it being sci-fi. It's about people, and it's about governments, and it's about relationships, and it's absolute peak. Part of me is sad that season 2 is the end, but then part of me also knows that the reason the show was so good was because it was so tightly written, and it had an endpoint, and it knew it was going to hit it within X number of episodes. Now, if only Disney would believe in other people's visions for their stories that they do about their own IP, but that's the Doctor Who fan in me coming out. You can go watch my previous video on his channel for more about that rant. Thank you for stopping by. I'm going to go watch Rogue One and cry some more, and I will catch you in whatever I make next.